Good evening, everybody. This is episode 5 of Coast to Coast. I am your co-host Adrian, and I also have my friend Damen here. Damen, how are you doing tonight?
Doing good, Adrian. How's your day going?
It's not too bad. It's been a busy one for sure, and obviously there was the bad weather the last 24 hours, so trying to work around that, right? So, yeah, let's get right in the mix. The Habs this last week went, I believe they went 1-2. They beat, oh my God, who did they beat again? This is
The
so bad.
Devils.
Right, they beat the Devils on Tuesday, and last week, oh my God, I feel like already off the bat, I feel like such a terrible fan. I don't even know who they beat last week. I know they
It's okay.
lost 2 games. I know they played really bad on Saturday against the Leafs. Oh my God, guys! I'm sorry for everyone who's watching. Let's see. Yeah, Carolina. We were just talking about it before we hopped on here. Oh, yeah, we beat Chicago. We lost to Carolina. We lost to Toronto, but played a great game on Tuesday against the Devils, like Damon said. So, um, Mike Matheson's been playing pretty good lately. He's gotten a couple of goals the last few games. Harvey Pinard's still continuing to do great things. Bit of a rough game on Saturday. I was able to catch the whole game. Very busy week. It's kind of hard to catch full games these days, but try as much as I can. But it's a hard one on Saturday with obviously the new acquisition of Ryan O'Reilly for the Leafs. I think they came out with a little bit more energy, it seemed like. And obviously, O'Reilly's making a big impact on the Leafs already, but we'll get into that in a second. But yeah, I mean, Habs are kind of in a I don't know about a weird spot, but like they're winning games, they're losing some, they're kind of somewhere in the middle, I guess you can say there. Obviously the playoffs are still far from realistic at this point, but we'll see what happens, right?
Yeah, I think that this performances that we've seen from the Habs so far, I know people are going crazy. Some people are saying we're not losing enough, other people are saying we're not winning enough. People are saying we're mid, but I kind of think in a way that this is kind of good for the Habs because we're not losing games disgracefully. We're not just losing games just to lose games. We're losing games, but we're still putting fight in. But at the same time, we're winning games. And it's really important for the culture, as Jeff Gordon has said before. He believes that the culture is so important to the winning the games for the Habs, and especially through this time, it's not going to be easy to rebuild, and they never are. Losing is like pro athletes and coaches; it's not ingrained in their DNA, so losing is pretty much just a difficult thing for them.
Mhm.
And but in the future, eventually, with these kind of wins, the guys will know how to win in the future, and it's going to be something to look forward to in the future. Seeing this team win a lot more often. But I do think that these performances, especially against the Devils, I didn't get to see many games this week because I've been pretty busy with life and all that. But the Devils, I personally thought, okay, we're gonna get smoked here. But the Devils are a top team in the East, and we still found a way to beat them. And that just goes to show the fight that this team has and how good we actually are. So, what are your thoughts on some of the wins, Adrian?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the game against Chicago last week was big win 4-0. Obviously, they played really well. The game on Tuesday, I had hockey that night, so I wasn't able to catch most of it, but they came off firing right off the bat, from what it seems like. And again, they're playing with a lot of energy, which was good. Um, Especially like you said, like a top team like the New Jersey Devils, who are more at the top of the standings in the Eastern Conference, right? So it's good to see them winning games like this, like, and kind of circling back to what you said too. Like, these guys are just trying to win, right? They're not thinking about tanking every year. Like, it's not in their DNA as a pro athlete. Like, we've said it on this show a lot before too. Like, players don't want to tank. It's just not what they like playing the sport your whole life. You play the sport to win, right? You don't play the sport to get a good draft pick in the draft in that spring, or whatever the sport is whenever the draft is, right? So it's it yeah. I mean, like, it's they're in a weird spot right now, but regardless of where they finish, I still think they're gonna have a good future ahead of them.
I agree. And also, right now, with the way things stand, we are probably going to get a good pick with our own pick. But Florida, to put it nicely, they're pretty mid right now in the standings. They're hanging on to a playoff spot, but there's so many teams with 3-4 games in hand. Like you got Pittsburgh, Washington. Washington was a seller today. We saw in that trade, but we'll get to that later.
Mhm.
Buffalo's creeping up there, and
Yeah.
Detroit's also creeping up there. And you never know. Like this could turn out to be one of our better drafts in recent history with the current situation that we're in. We have a top right now. If the season ended today, we have a top pick and we have a mid round pick, and but like with the mid pick, like in the 2019, we ended up getting Cole Caulfield, and you never know. Like we could get another gem like that this draft. There's just so many variables between now and in the draft. So I would just say I completely trust this management crew that we have. Oh, Adrian disappeared. Let's see if we can try to get him back. Like I just finished what I'm saying. I think we have a really good management crew here in Montreal, and I think they have a good plan for what they're doing, and they know that there's going to be a lot of pain, but eventually we're going to get a lot more wins in the future by suffering the pain right now. Hey, there you go, Adrian. You're back.
Yep. Sorry, guys. I accidentally pressed something on my laptop. My apologies there. But yeah, you're. I kind of caught like a little bit of what you said there. It's true. Like even if Florida ends up finishing as a middle of the pack kind of draft pick in the first round, there's still a lot of potential to get a top quality player, and especially in this draft being a very deep one. And I think I even said in like previous show, I might have said like maybe if they really want to, they can kind of flirt with the idea of maybe using that mid pick in a trade to maybe get an already established player, right? So there's a lot of variables at play, and definitely a lot of questions they have probably in that front office. They're having meetings talking about all that, right? There's a lot of good potential for the future for sure.
I agree. And now that we're on the subject of the draft, I want to touch on something Minnesota's been doing so far this deadline, and they should be a playoff team with if the standings ended today. And I found something, and they've had an interesting approach to this deadline because they're accumulating draft picks by retaining player salaries who won't be playing for them, such as Ryan O'Reilly, and just today we saw with Dmitry Orlov. I'm just wondering. I know that there's talks of this being a more quiet deadline. Do you think there's a possibility that Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton should do something along those lines? And then maybe we'll look to trade up with that Florida pick and the later picks potentially for to do what Minnesota does at this deadline.
Yeah, that would be interesting. But like, I'm just thinking, like, do the Habs have like the cap space to kind of do what Minnesota has done, or there's a lot of different variables at play. Personally, we've said on the show too, like there's a lot of expiring contracts though in like this coming off season. So the Habs having a quiet deadline wouldn't really maybe be the best approach at this time because we try to see what you can get for a lot of your expiring contracts. Like, there's like Jonathan Drouin, there's Evgeny Dadonov who's been playing pretty decent lately. There's just name after name, right? And maybe you try to see what you can get for them, and like even if it's say a third rounder, just get something, right? Because then that third rounder can end up being a pivotal piece for your franchise. You just don't know, right? That's why like collecting draft picks, like no matter what, is always a good thing because it's just you could just get so lucky with a pick. Like there's some players that were late. Like here's a great example. Dominic Hasek was like in the last round of his draft. I think he was in the seventh round, and look at the career he had, right? And you just don't know, right? There's always so many success stories like that.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned that's a really good point. Just to circle back to the point, fact that you mentioned third round pick. The one name I can't stress enough was a third round pick is Braden Point.
Yeah,
Just
that's
imagine
right.
we draft another Braden Point.
That's the thing, right? Like it's always
Yeah.
it's imagine that, like that would be awesome, right? And you got to think too, like that's always a potential, right? Even like if it's a third or fourth rounder, a lot of teams, I find like in not just hockey but sports in general, like teams that are go for a Stanley Cup run or a Larry O'Brien Trophy run, like in basketball or whatever you name it. Like they're okay with giving up draft picks, if not multiple draft picks, to try and you know gain capital like that, right, and try to win. But long term, you know, the draft picks are good to have because I know some teams have just been built to win for 1 year, kind of thing. Like, if any football fans out there, like the oh my god, almost the St. Louis Rams, the LA Rams last season, when they won the Super Bowl, right? They kind of they just mortgage the future for, a couple of guys like Matthew Stafford and other guys like that. And, they were only going to win that 1 year and then that was it, right? So some teams are built like that, but then long term, it's not good to lose those draft picks because a lot of those guys that you build for that short term run are not going to be there more than likely. So it's just a real risk, right? So
Yeah, like that's the thing with the deadline, especially. Like I find for a lot of teams like that, the fact that you mentioned the Los Angeles Rams, like I'm not really a football fan, but I do follow the Super Bowl. I'm like one of those fans who just watches the Super Bowl and
mhm,
not for the game, but for the commercial and maybe for the last quarter if it gets really interesting.
mhm.
I was thinking Boston is a team I could see taking that kind of approach where they mortgage the future because this is going to like more than likely going to be their last year of contention. You have Krejci who's going to be going likely, Bergeron, so many other names. And you just saw that they acquired Dmitry Orlov today, and they put in a first-round pick. But I have a feeling Boston isn't done with acquiring picks. I don't mean acquiring picks. I mean acquiring pieces for their playoff run, because I find Boston always seems to get the guy, whoever that person is. Like you'll say John Klingberg this deadline, or you want to say Patrick Kane, one of the big names. Boston just I find always finds a way to somehow make a splash. I remember Charlie Coyle when he was a hot commodity. Boston got him, and I remember Taylor Hall. Like you name it, Boston just always seems to get the big guy, and I just have a feeling that they're gonna make a big splash on deadline day. Who do you think they're gonna get, Adrian?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm not sure who they're going to get, but I do agree with you. They're definitely not done because I think they're like the fastest team to hit 90 points in NHL history. I think they broke that record the other day. Again, they're just so dominant this year. They're really good. And you got to think like, hey, they got to just take the risk and mortgage the future because again, like we were saying, and what we've said on this show a lot is the Bruins are really on a short window this year, right? They gotta do it now, or it's probably not going to happen for a long time, So they're definitely not done. I can see them adding another forward, top six forward, if the whatever's available. Um, I don't know about with Patrick Kane, to be honest. I don't know if he's going to get traded this deadline. Um, I just don't know, like I think there was like a little bit of concern with like his injuries and stuff. I think he was playing through an injury, so
The hip injury.
yeah, he's been kind of like that thing's been kind of nagging him for a while. So like maybe I can see Chicago maybe signing him to just a 1 year deal and just run it one more year and then maybe next year if he's healthy. But that's the risk you take, right? Like and also his asking price is probably going to be extremely high. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, Boston gave up a bunch of draft picks for Orlov and Garnet Hathaway, right? So you never know, but a lot of teams seem to be more, um, I guess per se, like on the conservative side when it comes to trading those kind of picks. They don't want to mortgage, they don't want to trade too much in the middle of the season. So there's definitely a lot of options out there. I mean, there's so many players out there. I think you were saying too, like Tyler Bertuzzi might be out there. I was hearing rumors about him, and there's just so much out there now. So I mean, I mean, I don't know about Dylan Larkin too. I don't know if that's a truthful rumor, but I don't know what the contract negotiation, like the status on that is with between him and the Red Wings. So it'll be interesting to see if what the Bruins will do and what players will be potentially moved at the deadline.
I agree, and like Tyler Bertuzzi is one of those guys. Like now that you mention him, like I find he's one of those guys who plays playoff hockey from my experience of watching because he's one of those gritty, hard nosed power forwards who I find can get away with more in the playoffs because he plays that physical game and the whistle is blown less than it is in the regular season. But I think Boston that could be a good fit in my opinion, maybe in the top six because he plays that physical style that Boston's always had a reputation for playing. And then there's also I'm trying to remember the name of the defenseman that is also out there. I think John Klingberg is someone that
Oh, that's right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just have I know he's gonna go because I have a feeling that he signed in Anaheim so that he could have a play that so that he could maybe live in California for some time and then enjoy a playoff run potentially this year.
Yeah.
And Patrick Kane, I'm just gonna comment on that hip injury. Like I don't know what's gone on, but he's just been on a tear recently ever since that hip injury news came out. But I'm kind of torn on if he gets traded. I mean, like we know Taves won't be because there was reports of long COVID and there was something else that the team also said. I don't remember exactly what it was, but if someone in the chat
Yeah.
could help us out with that.
Mm-hmm.
But Kane, I have a feeling what could happen is he does get traded, but then he signs back in Chicago next year, maybe gets traded again. But it's pretty There's a lot of too many variables between now and the deadline, in my opinion. So I'm not fully sure on what exactly is going to happen as it stands.
I know Kane was really disappointed. I think we talked about this last week too. We might have, but Kane was really disappointed about the Tarasenko trade, right? Because
Yeah.
he wanted New York, from what he sounded like, right? He was pretty open about that, and so maybe he's playing well lately because he wants to get that trade value up, so he can maybe try to get a shot at one more chip, right? So
Yeah, and Vitaly Kravtsov's being held out of today's game for trade-related reasons. So you never
interesting.
know if it could be Kane going to Chicago, or I mean, if it could be Chicago trading Kane to New York. You just never know what's going to happen at this point.
Yeah, and you got to think too, like the Rangers are also in a position that, they want to try and win now, right? Because they kind of sped up their rebuild a little bit, and now they're in a situation where they kind of have to go for it. And imagine seeing like Panarin and Kane reunited. That'd be pretty awesome. They were nasty in Chicago. I would love to see them on a line together in New York there. That'd be unreal.
Oh my goodness, this is like everyone's like dream, like maybe New York Rangers fans' first power play unit. Just imagine you got Artemi Panarin, Vladimir Tarasenko, Patrick Kane, and Adam Fox and Mika
Man,
Zibanejad on
that's
one single power play unit.
wow. I'm telling you, that's a cup contender team right there. But the East is gonna, if that ever goes down, the East is going to be very, very hard conference come playoff time. It's going to be a rumble, that is for sure. With Carolina too in the mix, and even the Devils, like there's just so much. Like there's strong teams in the Eastern Conference. It's insane this year.
Yeah, I'm just gonna throw you in the spot a bit here, but how do you think the Devils are
Sure.
gonna do for the first time in the playoffs since 2017 or 2018 rather?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. I don't know, man. Again, they're a young team. A lot of inexperience, right? So not a lot of playoff experience with a lot of those guys, and you got to think like they haven't been there yet, right? So you just never know. Like I would be pretty surprised if they won a round. I think they can go to the second round, but I think that's like pushing it for them.
I agree. That's a good point because of the lack of playoff experience. Like I'm just looking at their lines right now, and not too many of their players have a lot of playoff experience. Like and Andre Palat has 2 rings. I'm just thinking
Mhm.
of players who have rings on their
That's true.
team.
I forgot. I completely forgot he was on that team. Holy smokes! I forgot
Yeah,
Palat
he
left
got
that.
his surgery and then like he pretty much disappeared for a few months and then just returned from injury a few weeks ago.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I think
He's
Palat.
a guy. No, go ahead. Sorry.
I think Palat's the only one with a ring on that team as it stands right now. And then you got Dougie
Oh,
Hamilton. He doesn't have a ring though, but he has some playoff experience. John Marino has some,
mm-hmm.
and then Thomas Tatar has some. But like the rest of the team, and Eric Howla has some as well. But the rest of the team just doesn't have much playoff experience. Someone I'm going to throw an unpopular name in who I think could help this team. I'm gonna say maybe like a Justin Braun as a healthy scratch because he's had a lot of playoff experience, but not really in the lineup. But I think in the lineup, I think another puck moving defenseman could really help them out. And I'm thinking that's Shane Gostisbehere from Arizona.
Ooh, that's a good name. Yeah, he would be good too. He's a guy who has a little bit of experience in the playoffs too, right? So, um, even if they don't win a round this year, if they continue the momentum that they built from this year going into next, and so on and so forth, into the following seasons, they'll have a good run. But again, when there's not as much expected, right? Sometimes the teams just take that and just thrive, right? So you just never know. They can just surprise the whole like hockey world and just go on a tear, right? I mean, it's been 11 years since they made the Stanley Cup Finals. I don't know if you remember that some time
Oh my
ago.
god, I do like that was like I think the first year I followed the playoffs like in a super amount of depth.
Mm-hmm.
That run just amazed me. Like I was
Crazy.
cheering for the Devils that year because I thought I wanted to see Marty Brodeur retire on a Stanley Cup win. But
Hmm.
unfortunately, that never happened. And then for some reason, Marty Brodeur retired with the Blues. It just felt so weird. It was kind of like Buffon going to PSG.
I agree, man. That was weird. That time of hockey was weird with him being in a Blues jersey. It was like 6 months before they had Ryan Miller, and then they had Martin Brodeur right after. It was pretty strange actually, but that playoffs though, I was actually like I wanted to see the Kings win in the finals because again, just the eighth seed that just barely got by and just played stellar in the playoffs, right? So that's what I always liked about the Kings. Like they were around that time, like they were always never like first, second, third place in the conference. They were like usually a bubble team, and they just thrived when there was no pressure on them essentially.
Yeah, I just had a feeling after they beat the Canucks, like after I thought, oh my god, goodness, the Canucks gonna lose because I thought at the time maybe the Canucks have a good chance to redeem themselves and win it all. And then after they lost, after the Canucks lost, I thought, oh my goodness, are like, is this just a fluke or are the Kings the real deal? Like there's no easy way to knock off the number one seed Vancouver Canucks. And then I'm trying. I remember. I think it was not Nashville. I think it may have been Minnesota or something that they knocked off. I don't remember the team exactly. Then they
Mhm.
played Arizona in that conference finals, which was a really entertaining conference finals. And I thought, oh my goodness, are they
Oh,
actually
yeah,
going to do it? And they ended up doing it.
yeah, man, it was crazy. Even like I was like honestly, I was cool with Arizona or Phoenix at the time, Coyotes or the Kings in the finals. The thought of that was just crazy. The Coyotes in the finals, like a team that's barely done anything. But like our favorite goalie, Mike Smith, was in between the pipes for them at the time, right? And he was. I remember he
Yeah.
played stellar. He played stellar, man. He was amazing that year, that first season in Phoenix, and he was lights out. I think Sean Burke was his goalie coach that year, and he just completely changed his game in a positive way.
Yeah, Mike Smith, that playoff run. I remember I just remember how he stole that Nashville series, and there was a bunch of stuff with Radulov and Kostitsyn in that playoff series.
Yeah,
That brings back so much nostalgia for me just talking about that playoff series. 'Cause I think I was like 9 or 10 years old around that time.
I was in grade 10. I remember I was like, it was like second semester of grade 10. And I remember hearing that report about Radulov and the Kostitsins like out partying the night before the game. And I was like, that's not good. I was like, thank God the Habs got rid of these two. Like, I was like, so
Yeah.
yeah, man, that definitely brings back some nostalgia. But yeah, talking about the Coyotes though, let's kind of get into this topic. They've been playing pretty well lately. So yeah, man, that's just they're playing really good hockey. I mean, Mullet Arena. I think I've criticized Mullet Arena quite a bit over
That
the
makes two of
course of the
us.
season. Yeah, like it's. I mean, they're playing good over there. They're starting to win more games there. They shut out the Lightning at home. They won in a shootout. I think it was 1-0. I was like, that was insane, right? Like they're
Yeah.
playing good hockey, and I think like I've said this before too, but I think the Coyotes long term, they're gonna have a good thing coming. It's just they gotta, they're probably gonna suck for another few years, right? But the future is pretty bright in Arizona. They have a lot of good young players in that team.
I agree. And also Clayton Keller's comments we have to talk about. I'm sure the GM isn't too happy.
Man, he's
That was
probably not.
hilarious.
He's probably right because man, oh man, they need a guy like a Connor Bedard. They need a franchise-changing player to, really change the course of the team, right? So you got to think, yeah, they're probably fucking pissed off. I know
Yeah.
I would be if I was a GM, and that's like kind of the goal, right?
Yeah, because I know I saw a report earlier this season. I don't remember who it was from, but the reporter said for the Coyotes and the Chicago Blackhawks, this season it's Bedard or bust season.
Oh, that's
And it doesn't look like the Coyotes are getting Bedard either. So,
no, I don't think
man,
they are. I think it's going to be either it's going to be I think it's a long shot, but Vancouver, San Jose's pretty bad too. Last time I checked the standings, it was like San Jose. I'm gonna check it again real quick because I might change my opinion on that. So let's see here. Overall standing. I check the overall standings like quite frequently. Yeah, Anaheim too. Oh yeah, Anaheim, Columbus, Chicago, Sharks, Coyotes, and Vancouver, Montreal. So Montreal's 2, 3. Montreal got 7th overall. That's still pretty good, right? So we'll see what happens. Anaheim's by far Anaheim, Columbus are by far the worst teams this year. I think they'll have the best chance of getting him. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Vancouver somehow wins the lottery because Connor Bedard is from Vancouver, and it would obviously be a very good marketing
Jim
tool.
Rutherford said he wants the first overall pick. He's the first GM who's openly said it on air. We want the first
Yeah.
overall pick this year more than any other year.
Yeah, that's right. He openly said it after they fired Boudreau, right? So you already know what their motives are kind of going into trade deadline and everything, right? I mean, they did trade Bo Horvat a couple weeks ago, right? So lots of stuff going on in Canucks land right now.
Yeah, Your Eating Tree made a perfect video of what happened. It was just uploaded just before we went to air. So if any of you get the chance later, try to go watch it. It was hilarious.
The Canucks are just such a mess. Like I've said it before, like they're just like the Los Angeles Lakers of the the NHL. Sorry, in terms of like the media like attention they get, and it's never anything positive. So
Yeah.
same kind of scenario. So let's switch gears here. This was last Friday. This happened, and I was like not surprised because he's a repeat offender with this, but Allan Walsh called out the Calgary Flames for a number of reasons. I'm going to see if I can try to find the picture to be exact. I still have it. It was just ridiculous. I don't have it on me right now, but to kind of break it down a little bit, he was talking about his client Jonathan Huberdeau, and the direction the Flames are going in. And man, this guy just I don't know where to start with Allan Walsh because I know like 3 years ago I think it was he posted that picture on Twitter of Marc-Andre Fleury with like the sword stabbing him in the back, talking about Vegas like stabbing him in the back, and oh man, there's just been one after the other with that guy just saying stuff online about like the teams that his clients are playing for, sorry, and I don't understand. Like, you're just the agent. You just negotiate his contracts. You take a chunk of what he makes, and you go home. That's your job. Your job is not to be a cheerleader on the sidelines for those players. They can fend for themselves if they don't. If they want more ice time, they can go and approach the coach and talk about it, or whatever, right? I've just seen it too much with Allan Walsh. Like I just really think he has to shut the fuck up, to be honest with you. Just be an agent. Like there's just no mincing my words on that. It's just do your job and that's it. Just do your job. No need to and another thing is too, like these guys don't need any they don't need any more negative they don't need any negative attention towards them, right? Even if it's not them saying it or thinking it, it's still just on their name, right? Like there's and that could cause problems with management and coaching staff, right? And personally, I know Huberdeau took the high road with it, and he said, it's not how I feel. Probably, there's a good chance that's not how he feels. I mean, he signed there long term, so he's gonna be in Calgary for a while, right? So I'm tired of seeing him go on like social media tirades. Personally, he blocked me on Twitter, so I don't see it directly, but I see it through other people. So
It's kind of like Steve Dangle with Phil Kessel. Anytime he tweets, it's news.
Yeah, man. It's I don't know, man. I just think Allan Walsh just needs to just keep his mouth shut and just do his job.
Yeah, I just want to talk a bit about like the situation, especially with Calgary, because I have some interesting opinions on what he said. I find Allan Walsh is a very unique agent because most agents usually are out there, like you said, to support their clients and get a chunk of their salary. But when it came to that Fleury situation, I think he somewhat cleared the air on the SDPN show with Steve Dangle, Adam Wild, and Jesse Blake, and he was pretty much saying that Fleury was told that by the management team he was going to play more, but he never got to play what he was promised by the Golden Knights. But in this situation, I find Calgary also a unique team to talk about because I thought they'd be doing better. But I find Sutter hockey, in my opinion, I guess it just doesn't work out for Huberdeau because I thought Huberdeau would be thriving out there with Lindholm and Toffoli maybe on the line together. But I just have like a lot of opinions, and I just don't know how to word them the best to tell you the truth when it comes to this whole situation that's going on. Yeah, because I find that like Sutter's hockey is one of those old school coaches who sticks to the same tactics over and over and over throughout game in, game out. And when he said that tweet, like he said, insanity is the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. I guess it's kind of ingrained in Sutter's DNA just to be like that. So there was also a report that I heard also with the Calgary Flames that I'm trying to remember their GM, Brad Treliving, apparently. He's not the biggest fan of Sutter, but the owner wants Sutter to be the coach of the team. So
Oh, really?
I'm assuming, yeah, that's like two different visions for the team, and they're not, and they're colliding in a way because I guess Sutter doesn't have all the players that he wants, and then Sutter just has to make the best of what he has. So like I just don't know what to say at this point. I just find that like Calgary isn't like Vancouver level mess, but I just find
No.
that they've been pretty mid in recent years.
I mean, they had a good season last year, and I mean,
I'm
Daryl
not taking that
Sutter.
away. Yeah, like they
Oh,
did, but yeah.
for sure. Aside from that, though, agreed. They have been pretty, you could say mid, for quite a while. It's just, I don't know, man. Just Calgary, just I feel like they've just lost their funk this year. Like last year, just everything was clicking. Like like Goudreau, well, Goudreau's gone, right? But Goudreau was there, and there was just chemistry on every line, right? And they were just scoring at a pretty high pace, and like goaltending was phenomenal, like defense was pretty solid too, held the line. It's just I don't know what it is this year. They just lost their funk, like, and they're definitely underachieving this year, right? I was expecting them to be. I think we even talked about it on this show, like after that, those trades and everything they did, like. I thought they were going to be like, top of the standings, right? But it's not happening right now. And I don't know what it is. Like it's a really weird spot they're in because they've really invested a lot, for this kind of, let's win now, situation, right? Like I remember like 2 seasons ago, like, after the North Division playoffs, I remember thinking like, or not playoffs, sorry, like the North Division year, like the COVID shortened season. I remember thinking like the Flames should just blow it up and just trade everybody, start from scratch. It's clearly not working, right? And they didn't really do that. And I personally, they're kind of like you said, they're not on the level of disaster of the Canucks, but maybe they should have done like a rebuild, maybe a lot quicker. Sorry, and it's just they're just in a weird spot right now. Like if they make the playoffs, that's great, but they're probably unless they again the playoffs is completely different because like we look at our Habs like 2 years ago, they barely squeaked into the playoffs and they made the Stanley Cup Finals, right? That could very much well happen to the Flames if they get in, right? You just never know. Like playoff hockey is just a completely new season, right? And if you're just on a roll, then anything's possible, right? But yeah, like Calgary's just in a really really weird spot right now, and I hate to see it because I do like the Flames, right? And so it's just they're definitely in a weird spot.
Yeah, it's just so weird to see because looking back, I remember at the end of the North Division, I said I was been talking with other hockey fans, and I said like what I think the Canucks should do is I think they should just tear the team down and rebuild the team around Matthew Tkachuk, Matthew Coronado, Andrew Mangiapane, Elias Lindholm, and all those guys. Like those are the core guys, and then you just build a team around them basically.
Mm-hmm. That would have
But
been
then they of course went on that amazing run last year, and then this year it's just like it's like we've been saying here, just pretty mid. Like there's a good chance. I'm not ruling out the playoffs. I think if there's a chance like if they make the playoffs, it's a whole new season. But I just don't know like what's gonna happen with them.
yeah, man. They're definitely in a weird spot, but hey, like again, they can just come out of nowhere and just go on a tear, right? So it's
Yeah.
just like you just never know. Like anything's possible, but yeah, man. I wanted to switch gears here a little. We were talking about this before we got on here too, and I saw this last week on I think on the NHL's PR page on Twitter, and I was like, what's going on here? But the RSN. So basically, if anyone doesn't know what RSN is, that's basically the regional sports network for in the United States. and a lot of these SN channels are the like the primary providers for like the hockey games. Like for example, NESN, which is New England Sports Network. They they show all the Bruins games, right? They get their feed. If they put a lot of the games on Sportsnet for Bruins, and they're usually like NESN feeds, right? So just and other teams too, like Buffalo and I think the Rangers, it's like MSGSN, I think it's something like that. But before I kind of go into a tangent, I just want there was something about them like missing payments on some bills. So apparently they're going bankrupt, and like the NHL was like had to put out a PR statement saying they were going to look into it. So the NHL ratings are already declining this year. I think they're down like 22%. And excuse me, with this happening, this can't be really any good either.
Yeah, it just can't be because we're trying to grow the game and we're trying to get it televised more on TV. And with this news, it's just it's more or less cable. But if there's any good news out of it, hopefully, like you said with the Bruins, there's a bit less Jack Edwards.
Oh, thank God. That would be awesome. That is the one guy I just, oh man, can't fucking stand that guy. Anyways, yeah, man, like what you were saying, Damon, like it's very true. Like it's very hard when they're trying to increase the fan base of the NHL, and when things like this happen, right? Like how are you essentially gonna grow the game if you can't even show them anywhere, right? So it's not good for the league. We all thought, I mean, we talked about this last week, I think too, but um, we all thought like ESPN was going to be a great, marketing tool for the NHL, but it's like ESPN Plus or whatever that premium content is. That's where they only show the games, right? So it sucks just for a lot of the fans too in the United States that are regional fans that want to watch their teams play, and it may not be an option anymore.
Yeah, because when it comes to ESN Plus, like you said, like I just don't understand why they would say, "Oh, we're reaching a TV deal with ESPN." Why don't like the NHL felt should have clarified and say we're reaching a deal with ESPN Plus streaming service so games could be broadcasted and streamed at different times when they're live. But though, like my only really hope with like live hockey now is mainly TNT. Like I really
Mhm,
enjoyed that panel because that panel was always so entertaining, and the games were much more entertaining to watch, in my opinion.
mhm, mhm.
But there needs to be more, there needs to be more broadcast and I think more marketing, in my opinion, for the NHL. Like I know Gary Bettman, if there's one thing I can say he's done well, it's been marketing. But he hasn't. But the marketing hasn't worked out in the favor that I guess he hoped, and also I believe that us hockey fans had hoped.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like we said this too. Like I think they need to like completely like rebuild their marketing team, because it's just like here's an example too. Like I completely forgot that there was a stadium series last weekend until like Saturday afternoon. I saw there was like clips on Instagram of them like practicing and stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, there was a stadium series, right? Like wasn't really much like advertising for it. Like I saw a little bit of it, but it wasn't like marketed to the point where like when it's gonna happen weeks prior. It was kind of like, oh, the week of this, oh, the week of the stadium series. It's like, oh yeah, right, that's happening. Like it's just I don't know. I think the NHL, like I know we keep saying it, but the NHL just has to do a better job with their marketing. Like if they want to continue, like I mean, personally, like yeah, like they will have the Canadian fan like market, no problem. No matter how badly they market the sport, we're always gonna watch. It's just they keep saying that same quote: "Grow the game, grow the game, grow the game," but they don't grow the game at all. Like I'm just tired of hearing that, like the NHL executives saying, "Oh yeah, we're growing the game." Like, how are you growing the game? You're clearly not, right? So man, it's just frustrating as a hockey fan because I know they could be doing so much more, but I don't know what their marketing team is. It's just I hate to say, but they at times can be very incompetent.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to comment too much on the marketing team because like I don't know any of the team personally. I don't know the inner workings, but there's just it's like you said, like there's been a lack of marketing, especially for outdoor games, which should be the guru of hockey games being played outdoors, which is where hockey should be played.
Hmm.
We don't find out about it until the game is live, pretty much, or unless you look at every single like social media account, like, it's not really being advertised on TV as much as I'd like it to be. I
Yeah.
found like one game that I found was perfectly marketed and probably my favorite outdoor game still to this day. The 2016 Heritage Winter Classic against Boston. Like that game was
Mm.
marketed the hell out of it. They did a show about it. I think that they did like a 2 episode docuseries about it. Good episodes. And that is how you market. You get people invested in the storylines. You get people invested on the viewers and let them know, yeah, there's going to be this big game coming up. Go and watch it. But I'm just at a loss for words.
Yeah, man. Going back to like the Winter Classic, doing the outdoor games. Like I remember the first two Winter Classic games in 2008. It was Buffalo Pittsburgh at the Ralph Wilson Stadium in Buffalo, and the second one was the Blackhawks and the Red Wings at Wrigley Field. I remember being a kid and every other commercial, if I was watching Hockey Night in Canada or I was watching like RDS at the time or whatever it was, like watching a Habs game or just a hockey game, there was a commercial advertising that Winter Classic game like every other 10, 20 minutes, not even maybe less. Like I remember seeing the Chicago Blackhawks one and it was like every other commercial. It was a very unique commercial. It was really good marketing, like, and they did a great job. It was a very successful Winter Classic, right? And like, I don't understand what changed. Like, they did so well promoting that stuff. Like, and that was 15, 13, 14 years ago, right? Like, I don't know what changed. Now we have social media and we have way more marketing tools than we ever have, right? I don't know why they're lacking in the marketing game.
Yeah. Like I just don't like I have no idea at this point, but I just want to ask you, like, what was your probably your favorite Winter Classic to watch as a hockey fan?
That's a good question. There's a lot of good ones. The 2008 one when Crosby scored that shootout winner on Ryan Miller was pretty iconic. Um, 2016 for sure. That was like one of the most memorable games I've ever seen. The 2014 one, the Leafs and the Red Wings, that one was really good too. They didn't have one in 2013. 2012, Rangers Flyers was pretty good. But I gotta say, yeah, the Leafs and Wings and the Habs and Bruins those 2 years, and then probably the Buffalo and Pittsburgh one because that kind of started the trend of the outdoor games, right? So I'd say those three, but obviously, I'm gonna pick my Montreal bias and my Habs bias and pick the Bruins one. But that one again, that was a very well marketed game. They played it at Gillette Stadium, and I'm pretty sure it was at Gillette Stadium, and it was
It
like really
was, yeah.
cool. Yeah, man, it was cool. They brought like the football vibes into it. It was like really cool, like it was a good marketing thing. And I just, that was my favorite one for sure.
Yeah, I remember some funny stuff actually from that outdoor game, but that didn't take place on this. I remember, I think it was before this when they were getting a view of the stadium. Brendan Gallagher was just sitting on the bench, and then Tom Brady walked by him, and Brendan Gallagher was like, "Tom Brady was here," and then PK Subban was there with the camera. Was like, "Wait, what? Tom Brady was here?" He's like, "I froze it." I remember Dale said, "I would have touched him."
That's awesome.
I
I
said
didn't
like,
even
"Oh,
know that. Oh my
oh, you
god, I
didn't
didn't
see
even
that
see
clip?
that.
That clip is
No,
so
I didn't see
funny."
that. Oh, that's amazing. Oh man, I mean, I'm a I'm a huge Tom Brady fan, right? So I would have lost it if he walked by me like that. I would have been like, oh man, I gotta put on my best performance for this guy now, man. He's the guy like the greatest football quarterback ever. Like
Yeah, that
yeah.
clip was amazing, but also I find that Montreal isn't involved enough in the Winter Classics as much as I'd like us to be as an original six team, and not even just as original six, as the New York Yankees of the NHL.
I agree.
Like we've only really, I'm gonna try to backtrack here. I remember we were involved with one with Calgary, I think in 2011, and
hmm
then we were involved with the one with Boston, and then we were involved with the one with the Sens
hmm
in 2017. I'd like to see us involved with one with the Leafs. I think that would be a really fun outdoor game.
You just read my mind. I was just gonna say that exactly. Yeah, they gotta do that. Like, I remember last year they had the Leafs and the Sabres one, and that one again, that I gotta say, like that one was marketed really well. I had a friend that went to the game. He said it was really like the event planning was really good, and so that again, that was an NHLW. That was a good job done by them. But they gotta do something like that. Get like make it like a very like classic Canadian you know game, right? And like get people into that. And that's something a Habs and Leafs game, yeah, it's two Canadian teams, but that's something you show on like ESPN or something like that, or like you know what I mean for ESPN hockey. Like that's a game like that's a nationally televised game. Excuse me. It's like Red Sox and Yankees, right? Like they that's always the front page of ESPN and like all those other channels.
I agree. Something else I kind of want to see as well as another outdoor game. Now they're on the subject. Montreal versus Colorado, but they have to wear their Nordiques jerseys.
Ooh, that would be pretty cool, actually. Yeah, kind of like when they did that outdoor game with Vegas when they wore the Nordic jerseys. That'd be pretty cool, actually. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Oh yeah, that outdoor game. I remember I tried to watch that game that night, but there
Mhm.
was a big delay because the weather was pretty hot. I think the game was played in Colorado or something, but like there was like hot weather, so the ice well, it didn't freeze properly. Then they
Mhm.
had to wait till like 10, 11 at night to finally play that game.
Yep, that's right. The NHL's tried some really weird ideas for outdoor games, like the one in last week that Stadium Series. It was kind of a weird one because it was I think was it in Washington? Was it if I'm correct?
I think it was in Washington. Yeah, I
Washington
know
D.C.
Carolina. Yeah, Washington and
Yeah,
Carolina.
it might
And
have been.
KK scored in that.
It was yeah, and I saw videos of like these hockey like content creators like skating on the ice, and it looked like a swimming pool. Like the ice was like so wet. I'm like, oh my god, like how are they gonna play on this? Someone's gonna like try and make a stop like on their skates, and they're gonna blow a tire. I'm like, this is actually kind of dangerous. I was like kind of concerned, but I mean, obviously didn't seem to be a problem because they still played, and obviously they had it later on in the night when it kind of cools off, obviously. So it probably helped a little bit.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, like up here in Canada, like I don't know about you in Toronto, but in Ottawa here, we're getting an ice storm coming very soon, and it's not going to be fun. They could still.
Ooh,
I think here it makes more sense for the outdoor games in this time of year, other than the U.S. because in the U.S. it takes a lot more money and time as well to have these
yeah.
outdoor games because they cost so much money to have those freezers under the ice, and you don't want them. Like you say, you don't want them to be playing on a swimming pool. Are they going to like? Are they just
This
gonna
is
go for a
dangerous.
swim mid game? Yeah, they're gonna get injured. Like players are gonna fall, and I know hockey players are built differently. They fall, they get up, but it's not gonna be fun when players just keep falling in an outdoor game. It's gonna be like one of those games where players lose their legs pretty much, and they're just falling and tripping.
Yeah, I know. They definitely got to do a better job with that. It's like, yeah, I don't know, man. We'll see. I mean, hopefully they next year. They're probably gonna have another one planned next year. Personally, I think it's good that they do it. Like again, like the hockey originally was played outdoors, right? So just the whole aspect of that is just, you know, the originality of the game in that way is what really appeals fans. It gets them excited for, you know, these games, right? And, you know,
Yeah.
that's why I like the NHL, I think should just do a better job of marketing some of these games these events when they do them.
Yeah, I agree. And I just wanted to switch gears here and circle
Mhm.
back to the Habs a bit. And there's
Sure.
been quite the situation that's been going on. So Habs fans are currently divided on the rebuild. Like I'm not on Twitter because I know I'd probably lose my mind on Twitter reading a lot of stuff.
Oh, you would.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of crazy things on Twitter, believe me, like, and I'm not even on it. So Habs fans essentially are divided on the rebuild. Some are like, let's go into the rebuild. Some people say we need to lose every single game this year. We need to lose. Any win is a bad thing. And some people are saying losing is disgraceful and rebuilding is amidst defeat. So I just want to get your thoughts because I'm just
Yeah.
trying to like break this all down because I have my opinions, but I want to hear yours first.
Yeah. So I just don't understand like on Twitter too, but like Instagram and you know like comment sections and like stuff like that. Like it just for the last like maybe 3 years that I've been on like using like you know social media more, like Hab fans have been like crying and screaming, like kicking and screaming for a rebuild, right? And I just hey, it's here now, right? The rebuild's here, and people are still upset with the product on the ice, but it's just I'm like, why? This is what you've been asking for, right? Like whenever the game on Toronto, like the game against Toronto on Saturday, people were like, I saw one comment say like Bergevin is better than Jeff Gordon. I was like, whoa, buddy, hold the emergency brake
Oh
on
my
that one,
god.
please. Like it was like, and people are like, oh, you know, it's just another year, like blah blah blah. I'm like, this is what you want. You want them to finish in the bottom of the standings. There's gonna be a lot of pain involved. Like it comes with it. So why are you complaining when you're getting what you want? I don't know. I'm just tired of seeing it. Like for me, like I'm at peace with the situation. Like, yeah, it's hard to watch the games, but you know what? I know what's coming, right? Like I know what the intentions are and what's, long term, what can, it could be something special for this team, you know? Personally, I don't understand. Like, so to the fans out there that, are kind of being hypocritical. Like you're, oh, they need a rebuild. Why are they just trying to make the playoffs every year? Which I didn't totally disagree with that, right? But then at the same time, the rebuild's here, and they're like, oh, bless you.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No worries, no worries. So it just makes me scratch my head. It's like you're getting what you want now, and they're doing it properly, and you're still complaining. So I don't understand. I don't know. I just makes me scratch my head. Like I said again, like I watch the games because I love the team and I love the sport, right? Like I know that they're not gonna they're there are a lot of injuries this year, and like you can argue with that. Like, they probably would have been in a little bit higher in the standings if it wasn't for all the injuries. But like, hey, this is what comes with the rebuild, right? There's gonna be a lot of pain, and you just gotta get used to it. I just don't understand why people are complaining about it when they wanted it for years. I don't know, guys.
I completely agree with you. Like, I find our fan base now, like, I'm not saying like everyone, but I mean like every fan base has their good and bad fans, just
Mhm.
going like throughout all sports. But I
Oh yeah,
find there's like the complainers, and the complainers like, oh, I hate how this team is just making the playoffs every year and not going deep at all. And like, there's those kind of fans, and then you have the fans who are like, I hate the losing. We have to go all in this year. It's like this management. This is the first management team we've ever had in ages that's modernized the hockey department, modernized trading, modernized every single thing in this organization, and you're still complaining. Like, I don't know how people can comfortably say like that comment there. You sound like I was shocked when to hear someone say Bergevin was better than Gorton and Hughes. Gorton and Hughes haven't been here as long as Bergevin, and Bergevin did take us to a cup final. I'm not going to take that away from Bergevin, but
of course.
they've done so much in such a little amount of time. They've modernized, revolutionized the Canadians. It's amazing. But when it comes to losing, like losing, players aren't trained to lose. Same with coaches. This rebuild. They're gonna lose a lot, and they're gonna know. You know what? We don't want this feeling. It's gonna get them the compete level to compete harder in games in future, and then eventually take them to that next step to make the playoffs. Then eventually get deeper into the playoffs, and eventually get to a cup final, and then eventually win a Stanley Cup. Like those are the steps that it takes. It's not easy. It's long and gruesome, but all those steps need to be taken, and all this pain needs to be turned into gain in the future. I've said this before, but I'll say it again. Pain needs to be turned into gain.
Right. That's right, man. Like they also like the famous Vince Lombardi say, pain is temporary, but pride is forever, right? And that's the thing. Like you gotta like it's not just like in the sport, but in life too. Like sometimes you need to go through pain in life to to get to that next step, right? And that kind of like with sports too, like losing in life, something crappy happens to you, or as an athlete in the sports world, you lose a big game, or you miss the playoffs by just that little margin, or whatever the situation is. That losing feeling just all around it, like it's just shitty, right? And yes, you can build the better teams, you get the better players over time, but the guys that stay there, they remember like that losing feeling is shitty, and I don't want to go through that again. So it makes them go to the next level, right? And that's just what I think. Like you just gotta use that as like a motivator to just be better. And a lot of these guys, that's what they do. Like the best athletes are the ones that use losing as motivation, to get them to the next step. Like I don't mean to change like the sport here, but I remember Chris Bosch. I think it was I don't know if it was a Hall of Fame speech, but he was talking about how Kobe Bryant was in the 2008 summer off season. He was training with a bunch of NBA guys. Kobe Bryant was there, and the Lakers lost to the Celtics like maybe a week before, and Chris Bosch was like off because he was with the Raptors at the time. They lost in the first round in April, so he was off for a few months. A few other players, early exits, you name it, whatever, right? Kobe Bryant was up before them, and he was in the gym at 5 a.m. They all got up at 7 a.m. and they were like eating breakfast, and Kobe was already in the gym, right? And he just lost the NBA final like not even a week before, right? And that's why when I hear stories like that, those kind of athletes are just people are just built different. They just they just use that as a motivator, and they just get to the grindstone, and they just keep going.
Well said, Adrian. Like I'm not the biggest basketball fan, but I like know what you were saying there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like one of the biggest things, not just in the sport, in life, like especially when it comes to losing and all this. But I do trust that this won't be ingrained in the culture, because under Ducharme it was pretty much ingrained. Losing was ingrained in the culture, where you had players saying they were embarrassed to come to the rink because it was part of the culture. But under Marty, like this is not the case whatsoever. And Gorton and Hughes, they're here to
Mm-hmm.
win every night. Like they're not making the playoffs, but they're here learning and how to get better and so that they could win. It's just
Exactly.
it's like we're saying, yeah, it's such a good job Marty has done, especially. And I just can't wait to see what he does more with the youngsters in the future. Like you think about it more, like next season, you're gonna have maybe Jaden Struble come to the NHL or the AHL, because the Habs are likely gonna and try to incorporate him soon. And then you also have William Trudeau, who's also playing some really good hockey in Laval. You never know if he gets a call up. Like everything is going to be so much better in Montreal in the next few years. Like I'm just so excited to see like what this team's going to do.
And that's what I'm saying, man. Like everyone's just got to trust the process. Like they're they're on the right track, guys. They're on the right track, even if they don't get Connor Bedard. It's gonna suck because that's a generational player that they're missing out on. Trust me, it's gonna be shitty if they do miss out on him. But you got to remember, got to have the perspective that it's a very deep draft this year. So even if they don't get a Bedard or a Fantilli, they don't drop that low. There's still a lot of good players out there, right? And that's why I'm saying like they shouldn't have a quiet. We were talking earlier in the show. They shouldn't have a quiet trade deadline, because get as many picks as you can, because you just don't know what's out there. You can pick a guy with a third or fourth round pick, and then he can end up being your next franchise player. Like just like how you were saying about Braden Point with Tampa. He was a third rounder, and he's like a cornerstone player for the Lightning.
Yeah, and I just want to switch gears here to more
Yeah,
trade rumors and trades that have actually happened here.
sure.
So there's been quite a bit that's happened. A very unique player has been
Mhm.
traded from the Ottawa Senators to the Chicago Blackhawks.
Oh man, I'm afraid to even comment on this because him and his dad might fucking slide in my DMs on Instagram and try to threaten and harass me. So I don't know. But all jokes aside, like yeah, Nikita Zaitsev traded to the Blackhawks for a second, fourth rounder, and I believe there was another piece added in that trade, Damon, if I'm
I
correct.
think it was a second and third just to take on Zaitsev's contract, pretty
Wow.
much.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yes. Yeah. Oh, sorry, guys. I'm a little off tonight, but it was a second and a third with Zaitsev for future considerations. That guy's getting traded a lot. I feel bad for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I was talking to my cousin about the trade yesterday, because I think he was the one that told me about it. Actually, mind you, we were talking about it, and it's just crazy how that 1 year in Toronto, Zaitsev was just like playing great, right? Like was a stellar defenseman, and then Lamoriello gives him that long-term deal, and he's just not the same. I don't understand what went wrong. Like I don't know what it was, but I don't know how he just fell off. He had a couple of good years, he got paid, and just wasn't the same anymore. And man, he's just straight up hot dog water, man. Like I don't know. I don't know what else to say. He's so bad. Like I don't want to be mean to like about it, but like he's so bad. But hey, I'm not saying like he can go to Chicago and maybe he can turn his game around. Luke Richardson's obviously a very good coach down there in Chicago, and obviously we've seen him firsthand as Hab fans. Maybe he can help him turn his career around. Luke Richardson being a defenseman. Um, just I don't know. It's just I don't know what went wrong there. But for anyone that didn't get the reference earlier about him and like Zaitsev and his dad, so there was a Ottawa Senators meme page that made like a
Bruce
meme
Gary
about him.
crotch.
Yes. That and yes, and they made a meme about him. I can't remember the extent of it, to be
Oh,
honest
I
with
know.
you.
I'll tell you. Like, I have some inside
Shoot.
information, but I won't get
Yeah.
too far into depth. So,
No, go ahead, buddy. I want to
so
hear.
you've seen the movie Spider-Man: Far From Home, where Spider-Man in the trailer, Spider-Man says, "Wherever I go, I see his face," and it's referring to Tony Stark.
Yeah.
I was at this Habs Suns preseason game where this meme was made, and the meme was made after Jake Evans scored twice in the first period, and that meme maker Bruce Garcrouch made a meme saying, "Anytime, anytime the goal is scored, he's on the ice, and instead of Iron Man, Peter Parker's looking at Nikita Zaitsev."
That's great. That's great. Oh my god. Uh yeah, and he got very offended obviously. Like he was like talking about how he was gonna like like he was talking about like Russia or something, and he was like gonna be like, and then his dad got involved and was saying shit too. I'm like, dude, it was just a meme. Like,
Yeah, and Russian
you know
bots as
what memes
well,
are? What's that?
and Russian bots.
Yeah, yeah, that's right, man. It was just a really messed up situation. I was like, why? Like, it was just a meme. Like, yeah, like don't get me wrong. Like, I'm the first one to say like, oh, hold on, sorry. Hello from Brampton. Hey, I'm from Brampton too. What's up, man? Good to have you on. Sorry, I just thought I'd gotta give our hometown shout out there. But going back to what I said though, it I understand like, I'm the first one to defend players from like abuse from fans. I've been pretty open about it. But also, like players, that also, it's part of their job to take, uh, criticism, when they're not playing well, right? The criticism, that was the word I was looking for. And, like he's not playing well, but it wasn't really like a harmful meme. Like I've seen fans on Twitter say way freaking worse than just a silly meme, right? Like that would be a little bit more not really justified, but like would be a little bit more understandable about being upset, right? So it was yeah, so we'll see what happens there. I think Chicago fans might gotta be careful. Chicago Blackhawks meme pages better be careful because if you Zaitsev is having a rough patch, you might have someone coming after him. So,
Yeah.
and I'm scared to. I just hope he doesn't say. I hope he doesn't see any of this too, because I don't want any threats in my Instagram DMs. My Instagram DMs are a positive place. So,
Oh yeah. We don't want anyone coming after us, but we're just talking about the situation that's happened. So
yeah,
we're not
yeah.
saying anything bad, but we're just talking about this whole situation. I remember even Lego Rocks 99 when he covered this, he's like, "Come on, it's just a Spider-Man meme."
Mm-hmm. It's only a meme, man. It's nothing like.
There's been other professional journalists who've crossed the line even more when it's come to this kind of stuff, when it's come to players. Like,
Oh God,
I'm not
yeah.
gonna say his name, but Jack Todd.
Oh God. Oh man, that's another guy that blocked me on Twitter too. By the way, I'm
Seems like a lot of people have blocked you on Twitter.
oh, too many. Marcus Stroman.
Wait, what? Marcus Stroman,
Yeah,
the Blue Jays pitcher?
yes, he
Ex-Blue Jay, I
did.
should say.
Yes, ex Blue Jay, current
Is there a
Chicago.
story behind this, or should?
Yeah, there is actually. I could go into it real quick.
Oh,
So him and Randall Grichuk, who's a former Blue Jay as well now, they had a riff on Twitter. They had beef because apparently they didn't like each other when they played on the team, and like Marcus Stroman started like throwing like shade at him, and he wanted all the smoke, right? And he's like, oh yeah, I used to like talk shit about me behind my back and stuff, and it all stemmed though from a former MLB player. I think his name's Aubrey Huff. He was beefing with Stroman. I think it was over some I don't even know political stuff. I don't even know. But anyways, and apparently he was like saying like to Stroman like, oh, you kicked out like 30 minor leaguers during spring training just so you could have the gym to yourself, and you're a selfish player, blah 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 blah. The whole 10 yards, right? And Randall Grichuk liked the tweet, so then that's what kind of started that. And then Randall Grichuk just fired back and said, "Hey, I only like the tweet because it actually happened. So nothing personal. It's just what I saw with my own eyes." So, and then he started going back and forth with him. And Stroman was like, oh, there's so many people in Canada that'd rather have me on their team than you. And I commented and I was like, actually, I'd rather have Randall. So I'd rather have Gritch over you. So
I liked Richuk
sorry,
a
dude.
lot with the Jays. He was a good
Yeah,
outfielder.
he was
We
great.
could
I
use him
liked him.
though right now. We don't
Yeah,
have we don't
well,
have many outfielders playing for the Jays right now.
yeah, man. He was good for us. It's just his contract was getting too expensive, and he kind of fell out of favor with Springer being there and those guys.
Lourdes and Teoscar, who are now gone.
Exactly, right? So it's like, should we have traded him, right? But yeah, man. So he didn't like my comment too much. I was like, I'd pick him over you any day. And then he kind of just like had all his HDMH fanboys coming out at me, and then he gave me just the shrugging shoulders emoji like that, and then blocked me. So I was like, okay, dude, cool, good for you.
Oh my goodness. I remember that
Yeah.
Jays team though in particular had some sort of bad blood. I remember there was like stuff with Donaldson and then Marco Estrada. And then there was a
Mm,
certain news reporter for Sportsnet. I don't know if you remember that. I'm gonna say
yeah, I
her
don't
name
want to.
is JR, but like we're not gonna get into it.
Yeah, I did hear that too, and why this reporter left Sportsnet. Yeah, I did. I heard all about that. I just don't want to say names, right? Just
Same
out of
here, yeah.
people's privacy and respect, right? So
Yeah, like
yeah,
because like
man.
that Jays team was like I think the culture was pretty bad at that time.
Yeah,
But at least they're now contending, or at least they could do some good this year, hopefully.
the Jays in that time had a good team. You know, they had a lot of well seasoned vets that were just really good. Like you got like Donaldson, Bautista, Encarnacion, and Estrada, guys like that. And they were all prima donnas. That was the problem. Like the great players, and I loved them all, but they were just prima donnas. They had egos, right? So that culture you're saying, right? That's probably why there was like a lot of conflict, right? So
Yeah.
mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's go into the trades and the stuff like that. So the Leafs made again talking about Ryan O'Reilly. We said we were going to come back to it, but the Leafs made a huge trade on Friday. I was out with my girlfriend, and um, I just happened to check my phone for a second, and I checked Twitter, and I had to do one of those, right, because I couldn't believe it at first. I thought it was a fake account, like straight up, and then I looked at it was the Leafs Twitter. It was the official Leafs Twitter, and breaking a trade for Ryan O'Reilly and Noel Achari, two very, very good players coming their way. And I was like, wow, you know what? You give up the draft picks, but again, the Leafs are in a situation too where they got to try and just make a push, right? So you got to think like, got to give up the draft picks. So it's a good trade though. Hey, O'Reilly scored a freaking hat trick the other day, playing some great hockey and a good fit so far for them. I got to give credit where it's due. It was a good trade, and Achari has always been a very good, serviceable player. I liked him when he was on Boston. He was really good on Boston. So, um, yeah, I was honestly, dude, I was gonna say before anything like I'm surprised that Tavares is on the wing. I thought it was gonna be Matthews, Tavares, and O'Reilly down the middle, but what they're doing is working. So I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
what they're doing is working.
I agree. And just looking at this lineup here, like yeah, I think like some of these lines will change for the playoffs.
Yeah.
I was expecting like the center depth to be Matthews, O'Reilly, Tavares, and Kampf as the 4C because Kampf, in my opinion, is more of a good 4C than a 3C.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think the Leafs right now, as it stands, I think they need to add maybe another winger to this team. I don't know about Engvall. Like Engvall's I find is a very unique player because I find Engvall's inconsistent sometimes when you're watching. Like sometimes he can take over a game and bring in some good physicality, and then the next night you don't notice him. But I
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about this being a crime against humanity. Look who's top on their right D.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty bad. I
I
remember a
mean,
couple of years ago, Leaf fans thought that Justin Hall was Norris candidate during the North Division season
season.
there. Yeah, I mean gotta give credit where it's due. He played great, but now looking at it, that really aged really well. So,
Yeah. Oh my
jeez,
goodness, Justin Hall, what a unique guy.
I think the Leafs. I was talking to some Leaf fans actually because I'm in Brampton, Toronto area. At least we bounce again in the first round. Hey, we'll see what happens, right? I mean, this is for them. This O'Reilly trade was like the first like really good trade deadline trade that they made in years, right? To better their team. I think they need a defenseman now, to be honest with you.
A
But
right-handed one specifically. I'm gonna
yeah,
say the name I think right now because with the Islanders, they're willing to listen to offers on Scott Mayfield.
oh
If Scott
wow,
Mayfield's available, I'd say the Leafs, and the price is apparently second round pick. Do it. If
fuck,
I'm
that's a
Dubas,
good.
last year of my contract, like Dubas, he's probably getting a job somewhere else if he doesn't extend with the Leafs. Just go all the hell out. Like
Yeah, you kind of have nothing to lose, right? Because you don't know what the future is going to hold. So you got to kind of, take the bull by the horns and just go for it. If it's a second rounder for Scott Mayfield, that's a good that's a fair value for him for both teams. Like
he's one of the
Scott
most underrated
Mayfield's
defensemen in the NHL, in my
yeah,
opinion.
man. He's spectacular, that guy. You don't hear much about him, but he's a defenseman that logs up a lot of minutes and just gets it done. Like just straight up, just gets it done. That'd be a good trade for them, straight up. Like if they really want to do it, hey, go for it. But the Islanders are kind of in a unique position too, right? Because they got Horvat and locked him up long term, and anything's possible, right? But they're kind of like they're in a wild card fight. But I don't know. But they're listing offers on Mayfield. If I'm them, I'd probably keep him. But hey, they can get something from him.
Yeah.
Excuse
Also,
me,
they have
why not?
Sebastian Aho as well coming up. Not to mistake the Sebastian Aho we offer sheeted, but the Islanders have always had a reputation for having good defensemen in their system. Like they've developed a lot of good defensemen in recent years,
Mhm.
and sometimes if there's not enough room, they have to ship them off. So it kind of makes sense. Like remember that they ship off Devon Taves to Colorado.
Well, that was a
I
bad
can't
trade.
believe that was for only 2 seconds for what he is now.
Oh,
I can't believe only 2 seconds. It should have been maybe a first and a second, but I just
easily.
can't believe Devon Taves went for 2 seconds looking back at that trade.
Yeah, he was like spectacular. Like he's still really good, obviously, but like during the playoffs last year and last season as a whole, just spectacular. So it was like, wow, yeah, such a steal. I remember people kept bringing up the trade. Oh yeah, by the way, Devontae's only got traded for like 2 second rounders, and I'm like, wow, that's a freaking steal. That's a really good defenseman they just gave up on. So I
This is
hope
another
the Leafs
interesting
get
take we
bounced.
have.
I hope the Leafs get bounced. Hey, you know what? All of us in Habs land, I think we all hope the Leafs get bounced. To be honest, especially we're both in the Brampton area, my friend. Like, God, man, we would never hear the end of it, man. It would be really bad. So, I'm with you on that, my friend. I'm with you on that.
Right now, as it stands, they're playing Tampa. Do you want to look at the lines for? Should I pull up the lines for Tampa and see what they need? Do you think?
Sure, let's do it. Excuse me.
I'm just gonna share a screen here in a second.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is an interesting team right here. Never would I thought Brandon Hagel would be playing first line on the left wing, but it's Tampa.
Oh, dude, I was looking at the Tampa Bay team, like the Lightning's like player stats yesterday. He's having a good year. He's having a
He's fit
very good
well into that
year.
system.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, they took a lot of flack for trading two. I was it what like two first rounders for him or something like that. Like
Yep, they traded
yeah,
more for him than they did for DeBrincat.
yeah, for real. It's like wow. I mean, it was a gamble, but man, he's been great. He was wow. I don't say I'm impressed. Good for him. He's found a good fit in the system there, and um, yeah, Sorelli, Stamkos, Killorn. Oh, I love Big Rig, man. That guy's one of my favorites. He's
I
just
can't believe what happened with him and Jack Edwards.
yeah, and I like that he did like a big donation to like the Tampa Bay area for like people that have like suffer from like depression when it comes to like their I guess like their body image, I guess you can say. Like
Yeah,
he did like a whole campaign with that, and I thought that was really cool of him to do that. And um, he's just a really like well respected guy in the hockey world now. Obviously, winning 3 Stanley Cups sorry, camera, 3 Stanley Cups in a row, right? Like, I remember on my old podcast, I had Dale on there like 2 years, maybe almost 2 years ago, and this is a great story that I want to share with you all that Dale, our founder Dale Weiss, told me, because him and Pat Maroon used to have the same agent, right? And so you're in the same, you guys have the same agents. You kind of you contact each other, and I think one off season, Dale and Pat were talking, Big Rig were talking, and it was after I think the year he was with the Devils for that little bit, and he was apparently he wasn't feeling good about going into the next season. He didn't know what he wanted to do. He was even contemplating retirement, right? And they had a discussion about that in the off season, and he went into that year with the Blues. Went back home, played for a year, scored a huge game winner in overtime to advance them to the conference final. Then won a cup, and then after that, just 2 cups in a row. And it's just such a great story, man. Like he was a guy too who I remember seeing a little bit clip on him too. He was '07. I think he got drafted by the Flyers, and he got cut and stuff like that. And just again, like going back to what we said earlier, like you take those, like you losses in your life and you use them to make you better and to motivate you, right? And the guy's a success story. Three straight Stanley Cups, man. That's pretty remarkable, man. Like I don't care what quality player you could say. Yeah, he's a third liner. Who cares? The guy's won 3 fucking cups, man. That's not even winning one is hard to do in a career. He's won 3 in a row, man. Like that, and he's contributed in all of those. Like he contributed quite a bit. Like it's impressive, and you love to see it.
Yeah, his role that he always plays is he just plays as a fourth line pest pretty much. And I remember there's one quote
Yeah,
from Dale that I absolutely love, and I'll live and die by it. All lines have the same responsibility, and all lines are equally as important in the playoffs. And Patrick Maroon has been as important to the Tampa Bay Lightning as a Steven Stamkos or Nikita Kucherov or Victor Hedman has been. Just been getting
absolutely.
under every team's skin and laying his body on the line every single night in, night out. But I still couldn't believe in a way that the Oilers let Patrick Maroon go. I had a feeling that he should have returned there in the summer to play with McDavid again because him and McDavid were pretty much dynamite together. I know anyone playing with McDavid with some skill would be good, but I remember like those early 2017, 18, and 16, 17 season, him and McDavid just tore up teams some nights. And this is an
Yeah,
interesting comment from Andrew. The Habs should have kept Corey Perry, in my opinion. I guess we could have a good conversation about this right now because
yeah,
there was some more light shut on it from Pierre Gervais, and not in his book, but I think he said some stuff about it on the. I think it was on Chris Nyland's podcast. You're saying even if you gave him a 2-year contract, he may be good for the first year, or for the second year if he's not able to play very much, he could still be like an assistant coach.
yeah. Yeah, Corey Perry wasn't offered enough to stay. Yeah, I know. Like the thing I found weird about that with Corey Perry was like Bergevin didn't really want. It seemed like I got the vibe from Bergevin that he didn't really want him back for some reason, and I didn't understand that. Like he was so successful that year with us, right? And a guy with such veteran leadership like him, a guy who's won a cup and who's been to the finals, done it all, right? Like everything in hockey. Like he's won a gold medal. I'm pretty sure.
He has, yeah,
He's
at the World
yeah,
Championships and the Olympics.
that's right. And he's won a cup and he's gone on deep playoff runs. And you got to think like that's a guy you want on your team. Obviously he's kind of near the end of his career, mind you, but like that's a guy you want around your young players, right? And like the kids love them. I know Caulfield was like, you know, love the guy, right? And just it just that one really made me scratch my head when they didn't re-sign him. And even like the media like members were asking Burge about like the potential of them resigning Perry, and he kind of gave an answer like, like he was his whole objective was to keep the team younger, but you need guys like that. You need Corey Perry's, Pat Maroons in your lineup. Like those guys. They they contribute. In one way or another. Like I just I agree with the comment they should have kept them, but it is what it is. What can you do, right? We got to see him for a year, and it was a fun year with him. So I'm pretty happy and thankful that we did.
Yeah, and I remember looking back at that media press that Bergevin did on deadline day, or not deadline day, free agency frenzy day, where he signed Hoffman, he signed Savard and Paquette, and then the reporter said, "What about Perry? What about Tatar?" And he's like, "Ah, I fielded an offer to Perry, but it's on him to accept." And then there was Tatar. He's like, "Yeah, I'm not closing the door by any means on Tatar returning," which I kind of felt like he kind of did close the door by not playing him in the playoffs that year.
Yeah, didn't even see a single game in the playoffs. I'm like, yeah,
I think after
he's
game
done.
5, he was switched out for Jake Evans, and then
Yeah,
I was like, "Yeah, he's pretty much done." Like,
yeah. I was like I kind of saw it coming too. Like the writing was on the wall when that happened. But like Tatar was for a few years. Sorry, was one of the more consistent point scorers on the team, right? So like losing him was crappy. Like I was like, I kind of saw it coming, but like he was a consistent 50, I think 50 to 60 point scorer on the team. And that's hard to find these days, right? So it was I was kind of disappointed to see him go, but like the writing was on the wall, right?
yeah. And I had a feeling that part of the reason why Tatar, like part of the reason Gallagher had a bit more of a point, had less points last season than he did in past was not only because of his injuries and all that, and that the ones he played through. I also believe that part of it was because he didn't have any line mates that he was really familiar with, and he had to build chemistry with different line mates on different nights. And I
Mhm.
just felt having Tatar still there potentially could have Gallagher could have maybe had some more points. I don't know if that's just me having a hot take, but that's
No,
just
not at
something
all.
I think.
I They lost no like two of his line mates who again they built some tremendous chemistry together, right? And that's hard, like guys he's been playing on that line with for quite a while, right? And yeah, it's you got to build chemistry, but it's hard, sometimes it doesn't take it doesn't take overnight to build that, but yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to go over Tampa Bay's defense a little bit quickly.
Mhm.
So I find their defense very interesting because usually we have Hedman and Chernak, usually, especially in the playoffs, they'll probably change this, but you have Perbix in the top pair, which I find is so unique because Perbix only really had an impact this year, and I never found out about him until just this season. I don't know if you were really aware of who Nicholas Perbix was, but
Honestly don't even know him.
oh,
Sounds bad. I've never heard of him. I'm sorry.
that's okay.
Nothing. All due respect to him, it's nothing. I just I haven't heard much of him, to be honest.
Yeah, Tampa Bay, like their defense is pretty good, especially for the playoffs, but I think they'll probably add maybe one more defenseman. And then for the goaltending, of course, you have Vasilevsky, who's proven to be a good defenseman in the playoffs. And then you have Brian Elliott.
Mhm.
And Brian Elliott, I'm surprised at how well he's aged. How well he's aged his game because he's still a pretty reliable backup goalie in the NHL.
Yeah, yeah, he's still pretty good for his age. He's getting it done still. Yeah, I have a fun fact though about Hayden Fleury going up there. Actually, um, Hayden Fleury is who is it? So there's a friend of mine that I play hockey with. I haven't seen him in a while, but he's like usually we go to the rink together if we got time. He played hockey. I think he went to like a development school in Saskatchewan, and he was line mates with Hayden Fleury there.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
pretty
pretty cool. Like
cool.
when you get a B line mates with
Yeah,
NHLer.
yeah, man. Yeah, it was pretty cool. He was telling me that the last time, and I was like, I thought that was pretty cool. So yeah, shout out to Jared if you're watching, maybe. But yeah, it was pretty cool, man. It was he was telling us all that at the last time we hung out. It was pretty cool.
I'm just gonna stop the share screen here and just gonna go over some more things that happened.
Mhm.
So we have Shea Weber's contract yet again moving. I don't know, like I'm just in a unique phase with Shea Weber right now because we know he hasn't announced his retirement, but
Yeah.
there's a photo that surfaced on the internet where he was wearing a Henderson Silver Knights jacket and we saw him on the ice. Looked like he was coaching. So I have no idea what's really like. I don't know if he's going to be a coach. I don't know if we can speculate a bit in this conversation, but
Yeah,
I just am in a unique phase, like wondering what's going on with Shea. But like we know he's not playing again in the NHL, but I wonder if he's maybe going to become a coach of some sorts or something along those lines, or development coach.
that'd be cool though. I remember, yeah, we all saw that picture. I think in our group chat we were like, "What's this? Like, this is weird." So now, I mean, he's not property of the Vegas Golden Knights anymore. So you might see him maybe in a Tucson Road. I think it's Tucson
Yeah.
Roadrunners jacket and sweats. We'll see, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe he can end up being, maybe starting off as like a player development coach, maybe down the line, maybe or something like that. That'd be very interesting though to see what that was all about. I think only the inside knows, but that
Yeah.
would be yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, it was. I think we were talking about it too in our group chat. He his contract got traded again to the Coyotes this time. So the Coyotes pick up another LTIR contract. I think like that's probably like the 50th one they have. To be honest, it's
I
like
think
so
so,
crazy.
yeah.
It's
I swear that
crazy.
it's where contracts go to die.
I think so. They had Hossa, Datsuk, and yeah, Chris Pronger at one
They
point.
did, yeah. One time I played NHL, I think it was, like, 15 or something, or no, it was, like, 18, and then
Yeah.
Datsuk's, like, their first line center. It's like, he's not even playing there, just contract's there to die pretty much.
Oh my god. Yeah, because NHL they just have like the LTIR guys as like healthy scratches. So you probably had like Hossa, Datsuk, Pronger, like that'd be a fucking Hall of Fame team like 10 years ago, like NHL freaking 11. The Hall of Fame caliber team.
They may actually sell jerseys
Crazy.
if they wanted to with those guys.
They should have. That would have been an outstanding like marketing thing, but
I
again,
don't know if you saw oh, I don't
another
know if you
failed
saw the
opportunity.
Habs fan TV video where they had the anti-Habs fan and he wore, like, a Vegas Golden Knights jersey with Shea Weber taped on the back. Just
Yeah, that
imagine
was
that guy
excessive.
comes the next time the Coyotes play and he has a Shea Weber Coyotes jersey.
Oh god, that'd be hilarious. We gotta give Habs Fan TV a shout out. Those guys are pretty awesome.
Yeah, they do a lot of good content
Yeah,
creating.
they are. They follow us on TikTok. Actually, they followed us a few weeks ago, and I reached out to them, and I was like, "Thanks for the follow." And kind of talked a little bit here and there, but good page, good content. Gotta show support to the community. Sorry, I'm tongue twisters tonight, man.
Yeah.
But
Habs fan
yeah,
community, like the Habs fan community is like the best community ever.
I agree. Even though there's a lot of toxic fans, but I'm not going to alienate the whole fan base because there's a lot of great fans out there that are just very passionate. And one thing I have to remember too, like I try not to get too caught up in that because you got to remember, like again, the Montreal Canadiens, like again, like you said, David, like the New York Yankees of hockey, right? And us fans are just very passionate because of our rich history, right? So the expectations are just really high and the fans have high standards and I do respect that.
Yeah, but I think also as a fan, sometimes it's on us, especially like I'm not saying me, like I didn't expect to have a very good season this year, but other fans, some expected the Stanley Cup this year.
That's
Like I
yeah,
think we have to keep our expectations realistic every
yeah,
season.
got to be a little realistic, right? Like obviously that's every every player in that dressing room regardless of sorry, excuse me, regardless of like what's expected and all that from like the fan or the media standpoint, but their mindset every year is it doesn't matter who's on that roster, right? Their mindset's to win a Stanley Cup, right? So that's what they play for.
Yeah, and players literally play through some of the craziest injuries. Like Gallagher and Weber probably could barely walk in the playoffs, and they played through a lot of injuries, especially that playoff run back
Yeah,
in 2021.
that was insane. I think they said Weber was playing with like a busted up ankle
Yeah,
and
in a wrist or something.
wrist. Yeah, I remember I always love hearing that. Like after the NHL playoffs are done, and then all the players like confess like the really fucking fucked up crazy injuries they played through is the best thing ever. I just wait for it. Like the Stanley Cup Finals are done. I'm like, we're gonna hear all the insane injuries that these guys played through, and it's like, wow. Like some again, play with a broken wrist. Like, oh my god, that's and for how like stellar Weber was during that Stanley Cup run. It's like holy jumping, like how do you play through that? Like I've like hurt my knee once in a freaking beer league hockey and I played the whole summer with it, but I could barely walk. I can't imagine him doing that like with an actual like busted up wrist. Like crazy, 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 craziness.
Yeah, they're just built differently.
Absolutely.
And I remember, did you see? Like I remember after the Stanley Cup Finals, I think it was just before like the final game. I remember, I think there was a photo of what's Valerina Chushkin's ankle, I think it was, or his foot. it was like it was more purple than the purple crayon out there.
Yep, I do remember that. It was his ankle, yeah. And yeah, it was insane. I'm like, how do you put your skate on? How are you not like
Mm.
screaming in pain? Like, holy crap, man. Well, he probably was, but that's hey, it's the playoffs, man. Some guys just they'll do anything to lay it on the line, right? And I respect that. And I saw that picture of his ankle there, and I was like, wow, you gotta put some respect on his name for that. Like I've had ankle injuries before too, and was barely able to walk, and like this, like he's like suiting up for a Stanley Cup final game, like that's insane.
Oh, let's see this comment.
Wow,
Whoa.
really, eh?
I did not
That
know this.
I did not know this either. Thank you, Andrew. That's insane. And he was like historically good in that 1993 final
He
or
had
playoff.
so much
Sorry,
confidence that playoff run. He's like, score whenever you want. They're not going to score on me in overtime.
my favorite. Like, I mean, I was born in 1996, right? But like, I've seen the clips and all that. But I love the one where I don't know if it was Gretzky that skated by him, but he gives him the wink as he skate. Like, I know Carey Price did that a couple of years ago against Vegas, the same exact same style, and I was like, ah, I love that shit.
Yeah. I'm
Although
like,
I'm not a goalie and I've been robbed by goalies before and it's not a good feeling, but hey.
oh, this is more confirmation. Mike, am I going to say his name right? Hugh injured Patrick Well with that collarbone in Game 5 in the Nordique series
Ooh,
with a slap
wow.
shot.
Wow. That's wow. Patrick Waugh was like that guy. Like, that's another guy who's just built different, you know. Like he could have played way longer than he did. Personally, I think he could have played for another 2-3 years. He could have played until the like the NHL lockout like that year. He was still good, but
Yeah.
you know he did everything right. So he's like probably thought like I did everything I had to do, and that's that, right?
Like the only thing I can say he doesn't have is an Olympic gold medal, but he got so damn close.
Yeah, it was in 1998, right? With
1998. Yeah, that
yeah,
team should have won gold. Like that team was so good on paper, but then Mark Crawford, I remember some of
yeah,
his decision making was really
yeah.
off.
You didn't put Gretzky in the shootout in the gold medal game. That screwed them over.
Yeah. And I remember Patrick Waugh, I don't know if it's just me, but I find this is gonna throw you on the spot a bit. He has somewhat of the personality of Zlatan Ibrahimovic. I don't know if it's just me, but I just find that there's a bit of like in terms of ego and confidence. I find they're very similar.
Yeah, like I have a ton of respect for Patrick. Um, I think though, like his ego's kind of gotten in the way too much. Like after hockey, when he was his stint in Colorado didn't go well because he couldn't put his pride aside, right?
Yeah.
And I remember like I think he wanted the Montreal like the Habs GM position, right? He was
Yeah.
like openly on like TV saying like, "Here's my resume. Like I'm putting my hat in the ring," right? And the only problem with him is that like he wanted decisions over like player personnel, right? And because he had that in Colorado, right? And Montreal wasn't willing to give him that. So obviously, like, I think if you're just got to be the GM. Sorry, he wanted to be the coach. Sorry, he wanted to be coach and GM. My apologies. I'm just trying
Yeah,
to
I think
remember
he
the exact
wanted
state.
both. Yeah, he's like one of those people. He's one of those hockey up minds that wants like full control of the team.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if I really agree with that though. And he was okay in Colorado, but system wise, I don't think he was. Again, all due respect to him, but his system wise, I don't think he was the greatest. Their advanced stats numbers were not the greatest when he was there, and they didn't have the puck possession numbers that weren't that high. So, but hey, you know what? Some team will eventually, I think, maybe will give him that opportunity. I don't know, but personally, just coach and GM just doesn't really work in hockey. Like when you're both,
I
doesn't really
think Guy
work.
Carbonneau was or Bob Gainey. I think are in their late 2000s. I'm pretty
Bob
sure.
Gainey, yeah. Bob Gainey did it for a bit, twice actually. He stepped behind the bench, and when they fired Claude Julien in 2006, and then they fired Carbonneau in 2008. So he's done it twice. So
Yeah. I just
yeah,
want to, yeah, like this, yeah, Molson knows better than give Patrick Roy all the power. And then there was this comment from Montreal MUFC. Patrick and Zlatan have similar personalities in many ways, but I find Zlatan, it's like another level. I don't know if you heard about the LeBron James story where LeBron sent him a jersey, signed it, and Zlatan signed it and sent it back to LeBron. It said and then
I'm not surprised.
he took a newspaper out of the LA Times and said, "LA, you're welcome, Zlatan."
The thing is with him, like, yeah, like it's cocky and like confident, but like it's funny. Like people love it because he's like being like half serious, but he's like half serious and half joking, right? So it's like that's what makes it even better. Like he's just joking around, but it's like also he's got confidence in himself, which is great, right? But like I just don't think like he like for example like I think he knows how to contain it at times, right? And that's the thing that like they're very similar, yes, Wa and Ibra, but I think like in certain times Ibra has contained his ego a little bit better than Patrick Waugh has. That's just my opinion, though.
Yeah, there's one other funny incident with Zlatan I want to bring up. I think it was for a 2014 World Cup qualifier game between Sweden and Portugal. I'm pretty sure it was. And a reporter asked him, "Who do you think's going to win this game, or how are you guys going to win this game?" And he said, "Only God knows how." And the reporter said, "We have no access to talking to God." And then Zlatan said, "You're talking to him right now."
Oh man, my favorite though, I think it was around that time. It might have been the qualifiers for the 2014 World Cup when him and Ronaldo were like beefing back and forth, like having media sound bites, like back and forth, back and forth. And then Sweden and Portugal had a game, and Ronaldo scored a goal. Like it was a home game for Sweden, so I think the game was in Sweden, right? So Ronaldo scored a goal, and he like did a celebration. He's like, "I did it in your house," and I was like, "Oh, that's like fucking disrespectful," but I love it because
Yeah.
Eber was talking like so much shit, right? And then that happened to him, and I was like, "Wow, that's that's really bold." But hey, that was Ronaldo too. I love also Ronaldo when it was the Euro Cup a few years ago when the Coca-Cola was the sponsor. Had the cans of Coca-Cola on the table. He grabbed it, put it down, had his bottle of water, and he's like, "Drink water." I can't knock that, man. Guy's just trying to tell people to be healthy. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I remember there was a funny incident with the 2018 Champions League final where there was the Sergio Ramos Mohamed Salah incident. And if Zlatan tweeted, if you did that to me, Sergio, you would wake up in the ER room in the hospital the next morning." And then Sergio responded, "That'll never happen because you'll never play me in a Champions League final."
Oh, that's a bird.
Yeah.
That's but he's not wrong. But I think Ramos retired. I saw that today.
Wait, he retired?
I think he did. Sorry,
Wait,
I didn't mean to change topic, but I saw it.
I mean, oh yeah, that's okay. Like, let me know, but I'm pretty sure he's still playing for PSG.
I thought he retired. Maybe it was somebody else. I swear it said Sergio Ramos announced his retirement. I don't know.
Let me see France Stalker, see if there's any updates on that. But I don't know if you been
Yeah.
watching any.
Oh wait, Sergio retires from national team.
Oh, no.
Sorry.
Doesn't surprise me because Luis Enrique was the coach, and he and Luis Enrique had beef.
And he's older now too, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
he retires from international football. Sorry, I didn't mean to
That's okay. Yeah.
get you going there. Sorry.
I was like, wait, what? Like he retired?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, he's like, I'm looking at the score headline. Sergio Ramos retires from Spain duty. New coach doesn't want me. So there you go. You confirmed that for us, Damon.
Yeah, I remember him and Luis Enrique didn't get along. Like there was a whole thing with Ramos and Enrique because Enrique coached Barcelona and Ramos played for Real Madrid. That whole rivalry, and I guess there was also younger center backs out there that were a bit better. Like you had like Emerick Laporte, like you had those kind of guys. Like when it comes to Spain, on that back line, you also have Rodgers, pretty good defensive, but sometimes play center back. Even there's a center defensive midfielder I've noticed during the World Cup. So it doesn't really surprise me, but Sergio Ramos is definitely a very unique personality as well. Like that, not as egotistical as Zlatan or maybe Patrick Waugh, but he's like crazy egotistical.
Hey man, a lot of these guys, they gotta have confidence to survive, right? It's the sports world is a very cutthroat business, so you gotta have a bit of a chip on your shoulder, right?
Yeah.
Watch the next Asterix movie just for Zlatan alone.
Oh,
Maybe, yeah. Um, so I want to talk about one more thing actually before we cap this off. Found this out during the day today, but the Habs have claimed Chris Tierney off waivers from the Florida Panthers. That's a very interesting uh,
Sens
transaction.
legend. Yeah, Sens legend Chris Tierney. I'm gonna
Yeah,
say that right here. He
Chris Tierney.
will have his Uber buddy Chris Weidman here.
Oh fuck, that was honestly like that was one of the funniest like videos like I ever saw, man. You know what though, like they were speaking facts. Like I know, like they kind of were caught in a shitty situation, like that the guy like filmed them and kind of like fucked them over. But it was funny. Like they were speaking facts. Like the team was a mess, right? And they were just frustrated, like any player would happen. It kind of rose awareness to the extent of like these guys were frustrated, and this kind of like opened the door for people to think like players probably have like on other teams, uh, not even hockey, like other sports, they probably have open conversations like that about the team, like away from like from the public, right? So
Yeah.
it happens, right? They're frustrated, they want to win, things aren't like going well, and they were just kind of in a really unfortunate circumstance, right? The guy, screwed them over, and I
Yeah.
just love how the Uber driver's like, "Oh, you guys play like in the NHL?" And they're like, "Yeah, yeah." And like, "Where?" He's like, "Ottawa." He's like, "Oh, okay." And that's all he said. And I'm like, this guy kind of hooked them in there and took them in.
Yeah, because I heard something interesting with that whole situation. Apparently, the players found out after that they were recorded because I guess like in Uber cars now they have cameras like to solve certain issues and just to see like if pass like to solve things like if anything happens, they
Yeah,
want to have video
for
footage of it, which makes sense. But
for
apparently, he
safety.
told them like, yeah, there's a camera in the car and you guys are being recorded. And they're like, okay, but he said he wouldn't release the footage. And then the Uber driver said, you know what, I could become a celebrity off of releasing this footage. Did
That's
and then he got fired by Uber after. So.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, because he's using like company property to like for clout, right? Like, that's obviously a fireable offense, and that's obviously a bad PR move on Uber's part, right? So
Yeah,
it
I
had
just
to
wonder
be
if there's
something.
any conversations about Ducharme with Weidman maybe in private, seeing the way things went that
Oh
season,
well, like
or if he probably learned.
I listened to his interview about what was it a couple months ago it was, and he was on the Chris Nyland show in the summer, I think, and he talked about that, that whole time when that thing came out in Ottawa, and his career, he thought his career was like over, like he was getting bounced around by teams because I guess he got blacklisted for a bit because guys thought he was a locker room cancer, which obviously isn't the case. He's a good leader, and he's a pretty good defenseman too, right? So he talked about that was like one of maybe the hardest time of his career, right? Because he didn't know what was going to happen next. Like it was like Edmonton, Florida, and like a bunch of other, I think like a few other teams.
Anaheim.
Yeah, Anaheim, and he was telling a story about, I think he was just looking for an apartment with his wife in Anaheim, and then he got told that he was traded to Edmonton or something. Like he was like it was a crappy situation, right? So he said it was a really hard time in his career, and he obviously like learned from it, and obviously he said it made him a better person, and I could see he's obviously a really good teammate, and he loves being a Montreal Canadian. So
Yeah, and the thing I like about Weidman is he seems to like not just like being a Montreal Canadian, but all the guys in the team love him because they always consider him. I noticed in a lot of the videos where the Habs show off some personality with the media, I always ask who's the team comedian. They always say, "Oh yeah, Chris Weidman's our team comedian," and he seems to be a fun guy to be around when it
mm,
comes to like the players and that kind of stuff. So I like having him in Montreal because he's a good leader. But like that whole Uber video, like like tyranny like brings me back to those days like in Ottawa where everyone was talking about that stuff nonstop.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, you being in the Ottawa area, it was probably like the topic of discussion for like the next like couple months, I would imagine.
Yeah, and then there was the whole Melnick out situation. I remember there was
Yeah,
oh my goodness, I remember there was like billboards near my house saying Melnick out, Melnick out, Melnick out.
yeah. I remember it was that I think it was that same season actually when um they had the Habs and Sens outdoor game, right? And I think right before that outdoor game, he like went in front of the media and like, went in front of a camera and said he was looking at selling the Ottawa Senators, and people were like obviously outraged, understandably so. Right before a big event for your team and a great thing, you just say, "Oh, I might be selling them." It's like
I
like
think he
that. A
was
lot of
talking more
fans were
about
upset.
relocation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it was something like that. I know fans weren't really happy about that, and obviously, Eugene Melnick passed away. I don't want to say anything bad, on his name, because I don't like talking about the dead like that. So I was just like wanted to say like that was what happened at the time, right? And
Yeah.
there was a lot of controversy, right? So
Yeah, and I remember like and there was there was a vote among the city where like I don't want to talk bad about Melnick, but there was a vote in the city to try to get a new downtown arena. And Melnick had a great idea. Don't get me wrong, as an owner, I felt he had good ideas for what he wanted the team to be in Ottawa, but he didn't want to put much of his own money in. And he wanted pretty
mm,
much the city to do most of the work instead of him doing a lot of the work as the owner of the team.
yeah,
Like there was like
mm,
in Ottawa, like it's pretty much in a western suburb, the team. Like the western suburb, it's pretty nice in my opinion, but the parking lot getting out of there for games, like I went to the Sens Blues game this weekend. It took me like about half hour to get out, but like some
wow,
people who get there later and don't have as good parking spots takes them maybe an hour or two to get out.
that's pretty bad. Yeah, like I always thought like why aren't they in downtown Ottawa? Like that's obviously would be a prime spot to have them, but like I don't know if it's like geographically it wouldn't work, or like do you know anything about that,
I
or
mean, I think
being
it
from the
would.
area?
I think now it could work because right now, I don't know if like you're aware, but we have a thing called Blues Fest, which is pretty much a bunch of artists come to Ottawa and they like have a music festival.
Hmm.
So in that area, that's where they're talking about putting the new Sun Stadium. And there's a new form of transportation in Ottawa. It wasn't as big before, but now we have the LRT, which is sort of like a train system that goes east to west across Ottawa, and it works at least like there's been a lot of like controversy around. I don't want to get into the controversy per se, but like I've used it during the non-busy times and I've had no issues with it.
Hmm.
But like the city's plan is pretty much to try to make that a way to get fans to games in and out quickly.
Hmm.
So personally, I like the idea of getting the team downtown, but it just creates a lot more traffic backlog. Pretty much getting the team. I mean, getting people to the games because I went to a game back in December. The Habs versus not December. I mean, back in October. I think it was Habs versus Suns. It was a preseason game, and oh my goodness, like it was insane just to even get to the game. I thought I'd be at the game for like 6:30, but it was traffic to get there was bumper to bumper, and then eventually, like my mom just like was like, okay, you're this close, may as well walk. So my friend and I we just got out of the car and we just walked to the game.
Wow,
Like it's like
that's
all the traffic coming from the same side instead of that all coming in like encircling and then people coming to the game and then people leaving. It's like everyone going is like this to the game.
that's brutal. Yeah, I mean, something's got to give on that, right? I mean, Canada's, like a pretty big suburb from what I've heard, right?
Yeah.
Ottawa suburb, right? So, but like that'd be like if like the Leafs were in Brampton here, right? Like that would be just absolute chaos, right? That's why I don't know. I think it would be cool to have them in downtown Ottawa. Like I understand, like it's obviously going to create more traffic, but like I mean, there's all like in downtown Toronto, there's just so much traffic, no matter what time of the day, right? You're stuck in traffic. So
Yeah. This is an interesting comment from Montreal MUFC. And I completely agree with
Christianity
this.
Christianity is more of an add-on for a trade at a later date or a depth role at best. However, I can't say I'd be happy. Yeah, yeah, that's true. I can agree with that. Yeah, you could see him maybe. I mean, he hasn't played much with the Panthers. I was looking at his stats this year. I think he's been mainly in the American League, if I'm correct. He's only played like over 10 games with the Panthers this year, so
I think
mainly
he
an
has like
American League
3
guy.
points, like 13 games or 10, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, so you might see him get some time in Laval. Maybe he'll get his feet wet a little bit with Montreal. But again, that's a good either way for Montreal or Laval. It's a good depth move because Tierney's got potential. He's not a bad player. Like I know he was like I think he was very what's the word I'm looking for? He was one of the I don't know if I'm correct here, but one of the bigger pieces one of the in that Carlson trade, right? He was kind of expected to be like, like a decent player, I guess.
They're expecting him to be more of a bottom 6 player for the long-term future.
Yeah.
He did well in his first year there. He got just under 50 points, but
yeah,
since like that season, it's kind of just dropped off for him pretty much, his production.
Yeah, that's true. Well, yeah. I was gonna say we could probably wrap this up here, Damon. Do you have anything else you want to add?
I just wanted to thank everyone for tuning in. Like, it means the world to us, to you guys tuning in, interacting in the chat. And I just want to thank you guys for so much for watching.
Yeah, agreed. Thanks so much, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel here, and follow us on socials. And we really appreciate the love. We did the stream a little bit later this week. Usually it's on Mondays, as some of our devout fans know that tune in every week. But it's in Ontario here, it was Family Day, and some other provinces around the country, it was Family Day. So we're all a little bit busy, but we'll try to spark up another episode on Monday.
Take care. Cheers.
Yep. Thanks.